Manish Sahi, just drink that coffee and let's start the podcast, please.
We've been married, 21 years this week?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you just stop calling me Manish Sahi?
Well, I call you Manish Sahi because that's how I knew you on radio. That's how your friends call you. What do you want me to call you? Han, darling, Bay?
No, maybe Pati, Parameshwar, or even G, as in Suniye Ji, or as we say in Punjabi, Main kya, meri bhi gal sun lo ji.
Jesus Christ, Manish Sahi, just get on with it. Welcome to the Shabby And Man podcast. We're partners, parents, podcasters, broadcasters,
and everything else in between.
And our theme on the show today, on the podcast today, happens to be marriage. That's because we celebrated our 21st wedding anniversary recently, this week.
Let that sink in a bit. 21 years.
21 years together of being Mr. and Mrs. Sahi. We found out recently, in fact, we are not into this at all, whether it is paper, wool, diamond, silver.
I hope it's not diamond.
It's not diamond, no.
Good.
You'll be relieved to know. But I believe it is something really strange, like nickel and brass or something like that.
Is it? Well,
yeah.
in a way that's handy, because we don't have two nickels or a brass farthing to rub together.
Oh, so you think it's perfect?
It's perfect for us.
All right. So, 21 years together. And Manish Sahi, I thought that for those who are tuning into this podcast...
Manish Sahi bola? Okay.
Achha, suno. Suniye ji. To those who are tuning into us for the first time, let's just set the scene and tell them how we met, because you and I have completely different backgrounds. And as a mark of respect, हमारे anniversary के दौरान आप शुरू कीजिए, पति परमेश्वर. You tell us. Tell us a bit about your background, where you were born, where you grew up, how you ended up being where you were, which is where I met you, all of that.
This is sounding like an interview, yeah?
It is.
Like I'm about to get married.
Absolutely. And then I'll decide whether to say yes or not.
Nowadays, maybe it's a good thing we didn't have these dating apps.
Yes.
Like, who knows which way I might have swiped.
Yeah, I know. Or would you say now that you swiped right or left by mistake?
I don't actually know which way you're supposed to swipe. I've never used them, so I don't know.
All right. So come on.
Is it possible to use them with a fake name and a fake photograph?
I have no idea.
Okay, just asking for a friend.
Oh, really? Okay, come on then.
Okay, so I was born in England. I was born in London.
Yeah.
And I stayed here till I was about 9 and a half, 10. Then I was sent to a boarding school.
In India? Huh.
In the Himalayas, as I like to say.
Yeah.
In the foothills, actually. It's not like I was on some mountain top.
It's okay.
But I was on a mountain, yeah.
When I said tell us about yourself, I didn't exactly want the latitude and the longitude of exactly where you were born and where you were sent. Give us a general sense.
The gist.
The gist.
And then I think for about 2-3 years I was back in England when I was about 14, 15. And these are the days when, I have these great memories of Wham and Duran Duran and Bad Manners and Madness. Whatever was big in the music. What is it that you keep
telling me every time Jonathan Ross comes up in the conversation? Did you say prog rock? Something or the other which people then championed? Very good.
Now, I don't know. I'm going to be accused of what is called mansplaining. Yeah. Mansplaining.
What is that?
But prog rock is from the 70s.
Oh, is it from the 70s?
Yeah. Not from the 80s and 90s.
All right, okay. But then you got
prog
into
rock is stuff like Yes and Genesis.
Yeah, but you don't...
Stuff I love, yeah.
Yeah, stuff when you grew up with or you gravitated to these kind of crazy bands, right? So, okay. So, essentially you've been back and forth between London and India.
Yep, and then I went back again when I was about 16, and then came back again when I was 19. So I've had a very mixed, eclectic mishmash of two different cultures, two different countries. Kabhi Hindi, I'm learning Hindi and Sanskrit, or I'm learning French and Latin.
Yeah.
So and in the end, I've learned nothing.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants details on what you were eating and what you were reading and what you were doing, you just have to listen to the old episodes of this podcast just to know exactly where Manish Sahi was having his samosa and pudine ki chutney, sitting with his friends.
My parents were away for 10 months. They were stuck in India. They came back yesterday.
Yeah.
And they were cleaning out stuff, and they found this box of books.
From your boarding school days?
From my intermediate college days. Kya kehte hain? Inter-college.
Inter,
Class 11 and 12. And there's all these hard textbooks of Prem Chand, Munshi Prem Chand and all.
Which you've allegedly read.
Which I don't think I must have given exams on them.
Yes.
How? I used to have so many tuitions, I think.
The curious thing is that we actually met when we were in the media. What led you to the media? What did you actually graduate in and how did you end up in the media? Tell us that as well.
By fluke, like most people do.
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually a very funny story. It's a true story that I was doing hotel management. I had gone to India. I was doing antiques at the time.
You started your own business.
Yeah. So I was with one of my friends.
So hang on 1 second. So you did a degree in hotel management, then you did a degree in management as well.
I did, yeah.
And then you actually started a business on antiques, and that is what took you to India.
Yep. So my friend and me, we were sourcing material in Jaipur and this and that, and I was based in Delhi. I was living in Delhi for 6 months. And radio had just started, I think, FM radio, and I was hearing it. And I was at some party, and this guy said something, and I said, yeah, but I find the songs really old, and they just play the same 5 songs.
I could do better.
Just like that. I said, I could do that. And the guy said to me, meet him. And he introduced me to this guy, who just happened to be the head of FM Hindi, and he said, we have auditions once a year. It's happening this Friday. Why don't you come along? And he gave me his card. That was so weird.
And that's how you ended up.
And later on, he became a great friend of mine, and he was a national award-winning actor.
Yes,
wasn't he?
Absolutely.
He was
Sadly, I don't think he's.
I'm not sure. I think he is still around.
Is he still around?
But I think he's retired. And he was in Bandit Queen as well.
Bandit Queen, yes. Yeah. So that was your journey to
I went for the audition, and it was so weird because in those auditions,
yeah.
I don't know how many thousands, but they choose 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And they do it twice a year probably.
Yes.
And in those 5 people, you were the other one. You were one of them.
Yeah, I was one of them. So I had a completely, as we were saying, for us it is east and west is west, and the twain finally met when we got married. But I am a Bengali. I was born in Calcutta, but I grew up in Delhi, essentially in Delhi. So I am a Dilli wali Bengali, which many people feel is not the real deal, but that's the way it is. And then again, I'm Hindu, but I have a Persian name, so I've always had to defend my faith. I've always had to tell people, no, but I'm not Muslim. And so these were my concerns growing up. But I grew up in Delhi. I went to Miranda House, which is the #1 college in India for the last 3 years.
Which you never failed to remind us.
Which I never failed to remind you. Not in North India, not in Delhi, but all of India. And even my time, it was very hard to get into Miranda. And the years that I was at uni, just those years, my father was posted as the head of the Indian Postal Service in Kanpur, in Uttar Pradesh. So he was stationed in Kanpur. So I had to go to the hostel, which is what I think opened up a whole new world to me. So I was a hosteler, Miranda House hosteler, which carries a lot of weight, by the way, which is a very big deal.
You're not what I imagine a hosteler to be, being a hosteler myself.
Yeah. No, but you went to a boarding school. That is slightly different. I went to a hostel at uni. I went to, that is when you're slightly more grown up and you're not as, I don't know, insecure. But so I actually did a master's in political science. And again, that had absolutely nothing with what I do now. In my case, again, my mum being a writer, my mum used to write radio plays and a lot of other stuff as well. And one of my mother's friends just happened to ask her one day that, so what are your daughters doing?
Your mom used to do stuff for the radio?
She used to write
plays for nepotism.
No, not come on. She used to write plays for, not FM, but
I'm just kidding.
Occasional plays for, but yeah, I mean, not nepotism, but coincidence, I think. So, a very good friend of my mum's, he happened to ask her that, what are your daughters doing? What is your younger daughter doing? And my mother said that, yeah, she's just,
she's in college.
She's just graduated and she's thinking of doing her master's in political science, which I did do, by the way. But he said that, in case, if she ever wants to try out radio or whatever, because radio had never crossed my mind in a million years. I wasn't one of those who was part of the debating society or whatever. I was extremely vocal in different, platforms in uni, but it was never the DevSoc.
Didn't you tell me that's how your mom and dad met?
That's how my mom and dad met. So my mom and dad were great debaters, and my mom, of course, is a professional writer. So they just happened to mention again the same audition that you took, right? That we have auditions, and there's a new wave of FM presenters that we want, because FM was a new thing in India. We want a new sound, we want new music, we want new voices, new ways of presenting shows, in case Shabnam is interested. So I just went there for a lark, ended up being picked, as you're saying, only 1 of 2 auditions in the whole year, only 5 people made the cut. And this was including the Western music section and the Hindi section. We were part of the Western music section, right? And that's how we met. And then I think our careers kind of followed a similar path, because when we first started as presenters, we weren't friends. You had your own friends circle. We were colleagues. I had my own circle of friends. You had your own circle of friends.
You openly say that when you first saw me, you hated me. You saw this as...
Yeah, because you were explaining...
This long-haired London guy.
This long-haired London guy who was talking about who's your favorite singer?
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan, and God knows, like giving us a thesis on Van Morrison, actually, not so much Bob Dylan. So anyway.
I know this is totally irrelevant, but do you remember anything about your audition? I remember. I remember, and I think this swayed it for me.
I think we were given a paper to read, right? I think it must have been.
You had to read something. You had to read a bit of news, and there were a couple
and then pretend that you were presenting a radio show.
And there were a couple of words just to make sure you know how to say Barbra Streisand. Which many people might slip up on.
Yeah.
I heard a very famous story that someone said, "Oh, coming up next is the Beatles."
Come on, don't be ridiculous, really.
It could be true. If you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
But
we heard someone, we can't name names because I remember the names so clearly. We heard someone commentate on the Olympics on national television in India saying, and up on stage next is Kylie Minogue.
Yeah.
I could not
believe. And still one of my very good friends. But
they meant Kylie Minogue.
We know who they meant. Did you ever tell him?
No, I didn't.
No, did I?
No, I didn't.
Some things you just
maybe that is what that is what they wanted to eliminate. But no, I don't remember the audition.
Oh, well, I do remember that they had this little space where you could say what you want on the mic. And I don't know who was on the other side listening.
Yeah.
But I had read somewhere that it's very hard to say the letter P. And that just went through my head.
Say the letter P what?
Without fluffing. In the microphone, it becomes P.
Yeah.
So I remember just standing in front of the thing going, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, Peter Piper picked. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick? And I think that might have just swayed it for me. And I walked out.
Crazy man.
And that was my last thing, and I walked out.
Yeah. And also, it's quite interesting to point out that we had completely different areas of expertise. I started my radio career doing a request show, a late night request show. You asked for it. And you started doing late night rock. And your show became a cult with the uni audience. As people to this day remind you on Twitter, right? There are people who said, we remember you used to do late night shows. You used to do the first time FM radio went overnight. For the first time, it became a 24-hour station. You did the first show to take them through the night with all the rock classics. So we weren't friends, but I think our careers followed a similar path in the sense that we both ended up doing commercial radio at the same time because we were both poached from All India Radio. And
never again since then. I hasten to add.
Never again since then. So that's how we met. That's how we fell in love. That's how we eventually married. All this happened 21 years ago. Let me ask you this.
Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked. Did you say fell in love?
Okay, what do you want to say then? That's how we decided that nobody else was going to marry us. We may as well hook up with each other. Is that what you're saying?
No, all this time I thought you just wanted a red passport, a blue passport in those days.
A blue passport. Oh, by the way, which I hasten to add, even after 21 years of marriage, I've still got my Indian passport. Yeah, nearly 18, 19 years of living in London, I've still not got a British passport. So you can't accuse me of that, which is what always poses a problem when we're going on holiday. But anyway, we'll come to that later. So I also wanted to ask you this. This is a good time to talk about this. Growing up, did you have an image of who you might like to marry or who you might end up with, or that you'd marry a...
I know what you're trying to say. Did I think I was going to marry some village girl with a lota on her head?
Oh, listen, please. Delhi is not a village, okay? But what I'm trying to say is, when I was at uni, when I was growing up, doing an MBA from an American university was the trendy thing. All my friends around me, all they wanted to do, in fact, a majority of them, what they wanted to do, they were clear in their minds on what they wanted to do, which university they wanted to apply to go and get an MBA. I'm not saying this is for marriage, but for your career prospects.
Oh, you mean everyone wants to go abroad?
Everyone wants to go abroad and everybody wanted to do an MBA. That's something which never crossed my mind. A, because I think I wasn't smart enough to do an MBA, and B, because I don't know, I never, many people very clearly decide early on.
I thought you topped your university.
I topped my university, but then I did MBA.
Sorry, did you top university or did you top India?
No, I didn't top my university. I topped Miranda, my year in political science. So I didn't top my university, no. But I did top my college. But then what I'm saying is that, some people are very early on, they know very clearly which path they want their career and their life to take. Yeah. They might not know exactly who they'll end up marrying, but they want to know that I want to grow up in America. I want to do this. I want to have a big house, a swimming pool, a car, and 5 whatever.
We are not those people.
We are not those people, So I somehow never even thought about or even imagined that, I wish I'd live somewhere abroad, or this is something that never crossed my mind. And so when we decided to get married, and after a couple of months of happily living in India, when we decided to move here, there were
months. We lived there for a couple of years.
Couple of years. I think many of my friends were pleasantly surprised because they thought, we never thought that you were the kind to move abroad. And I thought, what kind would that be? It's not something you strategically plan. It's something
and it's
that
not
happens.
Like we also planned it.
Even we didn't, in fact, So when we look at our marriage, we can break it down into the honeymoon phase when we weren't parents. And then, of course, I think we ended up spending about a good decade of our married life raising kids, doing the school run and, all of that. And now we've moved into another phase where they've grown up, they're teenagers. So, we can reclaim a lot of our...
We can get our hobbies back.
We can get our hobbies back and reclaim a lot of our pleasures that completely went out of the window, like, going to the movies, going on holiday without really meticulously planning it, but on a, just not on a whim. What would you call it?
We still can't. I mean, we have to think, खाना कौन बनाएगा?
नहीं, फिर भी वो लोग अब काफी बड़े हो गए. So, and I remember, so let's look at the initial years of marriage. We got married in Delhi. We had an Arya Samaj wedding because you're a Punjabi, I'm a Bengali. So we decided to find middle ground. We had a Arya Samaj wedding in Delhi. We had a beautiful flat, which we did up exactly the way we wanted to with all our arty stuff in Delhi. And I mean, you were quite the party animal then. I had to find out what you were up to from the papers because you're forever in Times of India and, Delhi Times. And then you were on radio. I started my TV career reading the news in these initial years of our marriage again, in Delhi. So we were both quite the media couple, I would like to think, right? So we were doing television, we were doing radio, we were attending every party, as people know
you used to write for Cosmo.
I used to write for Cosmo. So we were doing a lot of things. And I think, again, as you're saying, it wasn't a premeditated decision because FM was slightly dying out by then, after about 5-6 years of really being the buzz in India. FM was dying out. There was a whole...
I think we should tell people who are not used to, don't know about what the Indian FM scene was like. There was only one channel.
Yeah.
And that was it. So you had to hear us.
Yeah.
And it was divided into the state, which is All India Radio.
Yeah.
And a private company, which was owned by the Times of India.
Yeah. So it was Times FM. Now you've got multiple channels. Now you've got FM stations all around the country, right? Earlier, I think Delhi had its own, Bombay had its own, Chennai, Calcutta. That's how it started. Very, very locally. So now it's in the last, since we left India, it's completely and dramatically changed. But this was the time when, this second phase, this boom in FM was slated to come, but it was being dragged on and on and on. It was in the legal courts for a long time. So, because the FM scene was dying out, that is when we decided to move to London after a couple of years of being happily married and having a fantastic time in Delhi. And moving to London, I think brought with it its own challenges. I mean, I started Asian radio. You rediscovered all your friends, your childhood friends who you grew up with in London. We got a bit of traveling in as well before the kids came along. We had our first child after 5 years of marriage.
Yeah, we saw a lot of
places
in England and Europe.
So we did a lot of traveling. And then, of course, once the kids come along, your life changes completely. We were committed to the school run. We were finding out things like Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, 11 plus exams. मुझे अजीब ये लगता है कि you went to school here. I know it was about a century ago, but nonetheless, you went to school here and you still felt that a lot had dramatically changed.
It had, because obviously all these 11 plus exams and everything, I went to grammar school as well. I must have taken them somewhere in my life. Yeah. But I don't remember. I don't remember. So suddenly, we had all these new things that we're learning as first-time parents, which everyone does.
Remind me again, I don't know why I have this at the back of my mind. Did you ever say to me that because you had already done a stint in boarding school when you came back here to do your grammar school exams, you said that what you had learned in India was actually far more than what kids of that age had been taught here. Your boarding school, so you were already up to speed with... You didn't find it that much of a challenge sitting your grammar school exam here coming from India.
Maybe.
Because I think you had said that the standard was far higher of what you were doing in India.
We had hobbies as kids of reading GK books. GK books. We'd read, someone would ask you, what's the highest mountain in the world? What's the capital of this? What's that?
Yeah.
Who's the president of this country? Who's the prime minister of this country? And we used to know those things back.
Off by heart.
It used to be like
that kind of...
I think that helped.
That helped.
Unfortunately, I'm still stuck there.
Yes. But, so anyway, so grammar school for you and grammar school for us for our kid was completely different, right? So anyway, we were busy raising kids, and that's when I think your career kind of takes a backseat in the sense that, we were both being in the media, we were working freelance. I did sneak in a fantastic TV show for Belgium television and my first book while our kids were still very young.
But you took a 10-year break from radio.
I took a 10-year break from Asian radio, and I would like to think that in those 10 years I enriched myself by finding out more about the culture of this country. This is where I give you a lot of credit, that when we'd sit and watch television, and we'd watch TV at odd hours because, either the kids were very young, so you'd stay up through the night, and when you're watching Jonathan Ross, whether you're watching reruns of shows that used to run here in the 80s,
I remember you watched the whole Brideshead Revisited. So many things which were part of the cultural fabric of this country, which you grew up with, 80s, 90s, because you were back and forth. You were never out of touch for too long, either with India or with this country. This is where I do feel that I'm extremely lucky to have you as my husband, because you filled in the cultural gaps that, I would have had. I wouldn't have just... Tell me one thing, that when you first came here, did you imagine that this England is this place of Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes, and it's all Jane Austen with the cobbled streets? And were you shocked?
I was shocked, I think. Not because I thought there'd be horse-drawn carriages on the street and people would...
the Hansom cab.
Hansom cab, and people would be wearing a corset and those ball gowns. Not because of that. I knew times had changed. And also because I'd been to London before on holiday, before I came to live here after marrying you. But saying that, those things did shape my view of what England was like. And saying that, I still love those things as much as my grandmother loved them. So we ended up, one of the first places that we went to was 221 B Baker Street. And you were like, oh my God, my friend used to work in a bank which was right next door. And he would tell us about the letters that would come to Sherlock Holmes. And we did go to Jane Austen country as well. We did see a lot of places where Agatha Christie...
Bath, I think we went to.
Yeah, we did see a lot of places where Agatha Christie has set her novels. So these things, it was a bit of a, you can never tell what the real culture
what about the new stuff
is by just reading about it. You have to live.
No, I'm saying, what about the new stuff you learned? Like, did you learn Cockney slang and fit in?
Not really.
Did you say dog and bone?
I know, you told me what it was. I'm trying to think what rhymes with dog and bone.
Phone.
Okay.
And Brahms and Liszt.
What was that?
Getting very drunk.
Okay, no, I don't know them at all.
And of course, this one you should know. Considering we've been married for 21 years.
What is that?
Trouble and strife. What do you think trouble and strife means?
Trouble and strife. It doesn't rhyme with marriage. What?
Wife.
Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, no, I don't know that. But, living here has been fantastic in the sense that if there's any place I would choose as my second home after India, because I still think India is my home, it is this place. Because again, being in London, it's a melting pot of cultures. You are never too far from a dosa or a dhokla or a samosa or a full English, or you are never allowed to feel homesick for too long. And therefore I think we've been incredibly blessed that we can call these two amazing countries
home. Though saying that, our actual high street doesn't have anything.
No, it doesn't.
We do have to travel a bit into Asian pockets.
That's because you are spoilt for choice. You were born in a borough which is one of London's greenest, one of London's best for schools, and you've lived in this borough all your life, right? You are a Finchley boy. We live not too far from Finchley. We are in Barnet, still in the borough of Barnet. So I think we are spoilt, extremely spoilt, and extremely lucky that we feel at home, that you are an Indophile. I'd like to think that I wouldn't have been able to settle down with someone who didn't like India as much as you do, and who's as comfortable in India. So that is again. And
I do like to wear my pajama kurta.
You like to wear your pajama kurta. We like to celebrate Diwali with a proper aarti and Om Jai Jagdish and all of that, Now, I don't think we've left enough time to talk about regrets, because there have to be some regrets. And that Om Jai Jagdish bit reminded me of your regret, which is that we've not taught our kids Hindi enough. They're not into Bollywood and you think it's a bad thing. I think it's all right. They can be like, you've lived in India, so you are different, but they can be like your brothers who are perfectly attuned to Indian culture, who understand Hindi, Punjabi, everything. They might reply in English, but I don't think they would feel out of place if they went to India at all. And again, like most British Asians, they've only gone to India on holiday. Unlike you, they've not studied, they're not lived there.
Of course they feel out of place. They have to drink mineral water.
No.
Make sure that
but fortunately, because our kids have been going back and forth so many times, our kids don't have to do any of these things. Because I make sure that they go and visit my mom and dad, my sister and brother-in-law, my family. So one regret would be, I'm guessing, that we haven't taught them enough Hindi. They don't know Bollywood at all. One regret would be, as you say, that, we have to plan holidays to places other than India. But I think now that we've moved to the third phase in our marriage, where we have 2 teenagers, we're actually contemplating GCSEs in 2021, A-levels thereafter, university for our eldest.
It's so much fun. We have empty nest syndrome.
Oh, please.
We can do the old things. Just pick up your guitar.
I'm dreading that.
Go where you want.
I have
be
never,
whimsical.
I've never hidden my age. And I say this to people that in 3 years' time, when I celebrate a big birthday, my 50th, I'm not scared of turning 50. But I know I'm going to be heartbroken because that is the year our eldest son goes off to uni. So I'm not looking forward to that empty nest syndrome at all. But I am enjoying this phase in the sense that, we can go to more gigs. We can go and eat out, just the two of us, knowing that the teenagers are completely all right at home and they can fend for themselves. We can discover traveling again and just traveling, deciding last minute, not planning everything meticulously as you have to do as a family. But, if you just fancy getting up and jumping on the Eurostar and hopping across to France or just going off to Brighton, you can do that now. And so I think 21 years, we've packed in a lot, right?
But sometimes, things haven't changed. 21 years later, you still have scream at me that, why did you ask for chilies in your omelette?
Yeah, when you don't eat them.
Yeah.
Of course.
But that's because aesthetics. It doesn't feel like an omelette.
It's the same way that you say to me that, what is it with you that you have to keep hoovering every 10 minutes? 21 years, you haven't got used to it. Main kya karu?
Yeah, because you got OCD.
No, I haven't got OCD. I just like to live in a clean house and it helps me. I'm a bit of a Stephen Fry in that regard. Stephen Fry says hoovering is the most therapeutic exercise. It helps him think. It's the same for me.
So you must be some great thinker, Plato.
Right, okay, I think it's time to call it a day now.
Okay then.
And that's
Till next time.
Until next time, if you've enjoyed listening to this, please do listen back to some of the old podcasts. We've been doing this for 2 years. Find us on all your regular platforms and don't forget to leave us a message if you want to. On social media, find us as Shabby and Man.
Till next time. Bye-bye now.
Bye.